the Olympics, if you haven't been to one, it is a bucket list for any person who's global. The feeling, the passion, the cross-cultural activities, the spirit of the games, the innocence, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the globalness of an Olympics is unmatched. At least I've never seen anything quite like it, having been to several and working the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. So what we're going to see in Paris, hopefully, will be a safe Olympics. It'll hopefully be as inspirational as most others have been. Casey, how would you like to kick things off today, given that you have been a very busy guy in preparation for you going to Paris, lots of interviews. You've been preparing both on the business side and also preparing a variety of conversations for members of Global Chamber to appreciate. And you and Hella Suede, who's our intern in Paris, have been working very diligently, not just on these interviews, but also an in-person event on August 4th. Could you take the ball from here, no pun intended, and let us know more about what to expect and share anything you'd like about the Olympics coming up?
Sure. Well, thanks, Doug, and thanks for giving me the platform to do this and the opportunity. It's been a really enjoyable experience meeting people via Zoom from all walks of life, all different levels, and multiple different Olympics. I just want to welcome everybody from around the world to our Olympic video cast podcast. We actually couldn't figure out what to call it there for a while, but it really is an informative view of the Olympics for decades. I mean, I can't believe that Bill and I worked on the Olympics 40 years ago. And we had Mr. Pound from the Canadian Olympic team from the 1960s. And so we've had many people from many different sports and many different opportunities and many different walks of life. And so it really is an Olympic experience that's tremendous and worldwide. And I don't think there's anything quite like it that brings it together. And sure, we've had our political issues with we boycotting Russia and Russia boycotting us in the early 80s. We've had wars that have canceled it once. We've had pandemics that have canceled it or at least postponed it. But it seems to endure. And it's been going on for well over 100 years. And it's really, really become an important event of this planet. And it brings people together from all walks of life. Now, when we finish, I'll finish with one final story, but I'm going to save that to the end. So I thought what we do is kind of go through some of the people that we talked to. And Doug, is Cesar on?
I don't think he is. I think he's traveling right now.
Okay.
As you know, he'll be.
You did a couple interviews, so I'd like you to talk to them about them. Doug, I just need your help in reminding me if I missed somebody. So, and these are in no particular order, but we start with Rich Perlman, who was the vice president of communications for the games in 1984. And yes, these interviews have been somewhat centered on the 84 games because that's my history and that's what I know. And those are the people that I know. So for those of you who are wondering why we're focusing on the 84 games so much, it's because that's that's your hosted bias. In any event, he was talking about how he was an early on in the Olympic Committee and how he was dealing with sponsors. And one of his more interesting stories was the Fujifilm situation. And Bill O'Malley can maybe chime in on this as well. But apparently it was a very important thing to try and get a photography or a photo camera sponsor for the games. And Kodak had been hemming and hawing and trying to decide what to do and couldn't quite make a commitment. And Fuji happened to call and say, hey, we're interested. And Rich talked to Peter Uberoth and said, I really like Fuji films. I'm an amateur photographer. I think they make really good film. And so while Kodak was hemming and hawing, Fuji swooped up the sponsorship. And, with the LA Olympics for the first time, the sponsorships were exclusive to a particular kind of product. So once Fuji picked it up in photography, Kodak was left in the lurch. And it sort of teaches us that, you can only negotiate for so long before somebody else is going to jump on that bandwagon and gain that exclusivity. So I think that was a lesson learned. Another interesting story came from Mr. Simon, who was involved with the Southern California Committee for the Olympic Games. Is that the right SCOG? Is that the right phrase, Bill?
Yes, Southern California Southern California Committee for the Olympic Games. Rolls right off the tongue.
And Bill and I got the memo to wear the same outfit. Anyways, he was saying that it's very important for the host city from one Olympics to pass it off to the next. And they usually do that with national flags. And so before Los Angeles, it was in a place called the Soviet Union. And apparently we couldn't go to those games because it had been boycotted by Carter and the administration, and they couldn't figure out how we were going to pass the flag to a representative of the United States when we couldn't even go there. And lo and behold, somehow the city of LA came up with an official flag that was mailed to the Soviet Union so they could at least hand off the flag at some kind of ceremony. Now, the problem is that the mail is very slow. And so they waited daily for the telex, yes, a telex, which I think any modern person probably doesn't remember. I barely remember. And we're talking 1980. And they were waiting for a telex to say that it had been received by the Soviet Union. Well, so on Friday morning, Mr. Simon was on his way to the airport to actually fly the LA flag to the Soviet Union so it could be done at closing ceremonies. And lo and behold, the telex showed up that morning and he didn't have to fly. So that was an important story. The funny part is nobody in the entire audience in the Soviet Union had any idea what this flag was, because nobody even in LA even realizes what an LA flag is. It's got some kind of symbol on it. And so it was kind of like, what's that? And there was nobody from LA to receive it. So it was an interesting dichotomy. Another interesting story came from, yep.
Casey, just like to pause for a second and take one little step back and bring up two things. What we've done over the last, certainly concentrated in the last month, has been to do these interviews. And you have been working primarily with Hella Swede, and I think the intent is you've done these recordings. The intent is to share these, right? At some point,
Absolutely.
Could you talk about that and when people will be able to see those?
Well, yes. So I'm assuming now that we have produced our intro to the Olympics, which is this, and we've highlighted some of the interesting stories in this conversation and talked a little bit about it, then we will produce those and start releasing them I understand Hell is going to do it on a daily basis, basically to coincide with a new one each day, is my understanding. And
and I'm wondering if Hella, I don't want to put you on the spot. However, your English is amazing. We really appreciate you working with us. We've been connected for months. And then finally, even though we were hoping to have you at our headquarters, it worked out that it was a virtual internship. So thank you for your patience on that. You are in Paris. Could you introduce yourself a little and tell us, from your perspective, what you've seen through this process?
Hello, so my name is Hela. I live in Paris, and I work with Casey and all the Global Chamber team on all the Olympics content, such as the podcast, this Globinar. There's also a physical event, the 4th of August. So what was the question? I don't remember.
You're a student. Could you explain a little bit about where you go to school and what your goals are from a career perspective?
Okay, so I study international business in a school in Paris, the 19th. so it's in the north of Paris. And hopefully I will do a master's degree after that. Um, Also in international business. I hope to do a semester in a foreign country such as the United States or in an English speaking country. And yes, that's it.
What's your hope and expectation around the Olympics? Are you going, other than our event that we're coordinating and collaborating with on August 4th, I presume you'll be there? And will you be able to meet Cesar Trabanco of Global Chamber and KC? And what's your involvement going to be with the Olympics?
Actually, I don't know if you've seen, but we don't have we can't really go in Paris. I was hoping to come to the opening ceremony, but the ways are kind of blocked, etc., for security matters, of course. So it's kind of complicated to be really invested physically, but I keep myself informed on Twitter, on X, etc., and I see everything. And well, as I work on the Olympics project, I have to be informed. So yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Casey, how has it been? And I think you mentioned you have a hard stop, right? What time is that?
At the top of the hour. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we need to stop before that, so we should be
okay.
fine. I know, and I think you're going to get to William O'Malley. My with the security part of it, my involvement with the Olympics were two of them directly: the 2002 Salt Lake Olympics and the 2004 Athens Olympics. And particularly with the 2002, I worked for Mitt Romney, who was the head of that one. And we put together a logistics plan, which coordinated with the security plan. To Hella's point about security and getting in and out of the area, as I think most Americans remember, the 2002 Olympics were the ones after 9/11. And so the security was extremely tight, and I will describe it as almost invasive, but in a good way. The city of Salt Lake was surrounded by helicopters during opening ceremonies. There must have been 100 of them in the air. My brother-in-laws lived kind of near the stadium. The FBI and others were going car by car checking for bombs, and that was within several mile radius. He was about a mile and a half away from the stadium. It was very clear that the police were all around. I made a mistake that day, and my wife asked me to go to the bakery, and I happened to drive from our home to up South Temple. I turned on from 8th South onto South Temple, and the road was completely empty. There wasn't anything for many, many blocks, which signaled that there might be something going on. I was immediately, a police car came up to me within a few seconds. It was actually the path that President Bush was traveling down and up to the opening ceremonies at the University of Utah Rice-Eccles Stadium. I had mistakenly jumped onto that path that they had cleared, and they were not really happy about that. KC, the security part of it is a key aspect, and I know that's one of the key interviews that you did with William O'Malley.
But actually, it was not William O'Malley. It was another gentleman.
It was. Okay.
It was. But one thing that was interesting, he talked about, he was on security detail for many Olympics, and he said the safest place is actually in the arenas. It's the open crowds, such as what happened in the Olympic Park in Atlanta, that are harder to control. And The technology is certainly there. The technology is better. We talked about there's a new drone out there that can actually fly over and detect strange behavior and behavior that's abhorrent to the rest of the crowd. So somebody who's kind of hiding in or hiding their things, those people can stick out in the drones now, whereas clearly in 1996 we didn't have those kinds of technology. And so the technology that we had is pretty amazing that we have to do that, but still the risk is there. And so, you know, his suggestion was, if you're going to a night event, always bring a flashlight, or if you're out at night, always bring a flashlight, because you never know if the power is going to go out. You should always just be careful of what's in the crowds. Always sort of keep an eye and be vigilant. Don't drink too much before and after the events, because you need to have your wits about you, and you don't want to have had a particular amount of alcohol that somehow leaves you so inebriated that you don't know what's going on. And for everybody, that's a different quantity. But you really have to be careful of those kinds of things, and too much celebrating and things like that, because there is a heightened security risk over a regular town. And, you know, the authorities are going to be lots more on guard for certain things. And so you don't want to be pegged in any way, shape, or form as being a problem when you had no intention of being. So it's really about being vigilant. It's about keeping your wits about you, and doing things like carrying a flashlight and things like that. Bill O'Malley, on the other hand, is our technology guru. And so Bill and I talked extensively about the games and what we did in 1984 in terms of technology. And so, Bill, why don't you give a little history on yourself, and then tell us about the 10 items of technology that we use every day that we actually started with in the games on a proprietary basis.
Sure, happy to. Los Angeles was really an amazing time in history as regards new technology that was appearing on the scene at the time, and that had never been, it was either emerging technology or brand new technology that was used in 1984. I was working at the telephone company, two phone companies in Los Angeles at the time, GTE and Pacific Telephone, which was a subsidiary of AT&T, and joined the games technology department about 2 years ahead of the games, when they were starting to staff up. And I was talking with Chris. We had 23 sports in Los Angeles, 23 sports, 21 and 2 demonstration sports, tennis and baseball. But technology was dubbed the 24th event because there was so many new things. It was almost like a World's Fair, like the Chicago Exposition or the 64, 65 World's Fair in New York. AT&T made a bumper sticker. I don't know if you can see that, but they called it the 24th event because it was so deeply ingrained, and made the event and the Olympics that year
so
special.
What is it that we use every day today that we started with back then?
Here's the list, and it's remarkable because these things actually were not in widespread use at the time. Starting with personal computers, dual diskette, floppy computers where you'd put MS-DOS in one drive and you'd put your Word or Multiplan in the other. No hard drives at the time. So personal computers were new. Cellular telephones were new, and they were expensive. I spent $3,000 on this one. Email, again, brand new. AT&T had the electronic messaging system. Voicemail was new. Fax machines that could send a fax in under a minute were used extensively in the results system. Digital pagers, which was the beginning of text messaging. So you could get 40 characters on your belt, and that was magical. No one had ever experienced anything like that before. Laser printers. We used laser printers for the results system. Lots and lots of copies, high-speed copies. We had copiers the size of Buick automobiles that could produce 2 pages a second. fiber optic cables. We pulled over 300 miles of fiber optics under the streets of Los Angeles that was used to connect it all up and provide crystal clear video for ABC, who was the host broadcaster. The Unix operating system that powers yours and everybody else's phones and the internet, Unix in your pocket. It's called Linux now, or Mac OS. Lots of grand and great grandchildren, but Unix was developed by AT&T to run the telephone network in the United States and the world. Digital telephone central offices and PBXs. They used to, the telephone systems used to fill rooms and buildings, and these things were as big as refrigerators that could be used. And then spectrum efficient radios that were much more efficiently able to use the spectrum. And in Los Angeles, we needed hundreds of channels, and there weren't 10 available at the time. So all of those items, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting, and you explained during the meeting, was, you know, these were all provided by sponsors. They're in-kind donations or what have you, and we have the same kind of sponsorship going on now. It's just at multiple tiers. The International Olympic Committee has their own set of sponsors that cover the games year after 2 years after 2 years, and then the local organizers have their own in-kind sponsors and things like that, where they'll give partial in-kind. I think our lawyer from the Paris Olympic Committee talked about the swimming pool company, and they're really concerned about business to business. But what Bill explained during his interview, which was fascinating, was all this technology. Well, he worked for one of the big 8, now big 4 accounting firms, and that accounting firm was so excited about all this technology that they said, yeah, we want to buy it all up. And so therefore, on a business to business relationship, these sponsorships turned into actual rate of return. And that's what I've been kind of looking for in this whole series was, you know, is it worth these sponsors paying millions of dollars in 1984 dollars or billions of dollars in 2024 dollars, and what's the rate of return? And Bill really hit the nail on the head and said, yes, on a business to business relationship, these products actually sold, and the introduction during the games really showed the powers that be in those large companies that this was worthwhile and a place to go and a place to spend their money. And I think that, you know, whether we're talking about sponsorship of a local soccer team or we're talking about sponsorship of the Olympics, you know, it's what's my rate of return and how do I measure that ROI? And I think this really showed that there was an ROI here. But Bill, before we leave you, I just wanted you to tell us one memory of the games that really sets in, not necessarily technology, not necessarily anything, but what's your takeaway memory?
Oh goodness. You know, there was another bumper sticker that they produced, and it was part of the recruiting for the volunteers. We had 50,000+ volunteers. We were the state's largest employer for 2 weeks. But it was playing a part in history, and that was that bumper sticker. And really looking back over, you know, over my career, it was the absolute high point. And being able to, I mean, just the memories of opening and closing ceremonies, attended both of those. Working in the department that I did, we were able to see, it wasn't one sport specific, but we saw everything, every venue, and even all of the sub-locations. I was involved with all the copiers, so there were copiers everywhere. So it was really something. But playing a part in history and being a part of the games in my hometown of Los Angeles, 1932, my grandparents attended those games. I attended the '84 games, and I intend to attend the games 4 years down the road in 2028 here in Los Angeles. Ta-da.
Anybody hear anything?
Yeah, music.
Yep.
Welcome to today's podcast on the Olympic movement.
Welcome everyone to the Global Chamber Olympics podcast.
Hello, my name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. I'm here on a special interview with Terry Batch, who's the CEO of Global LA.
Today we have with us a very special guest, Bruce Furness, among the top swimmers for the 20th century, gold medal winner. And there we have it. So we were talking about stories. So one of the things, I'm going to unshare my screen here.
Really cool video, Hella. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Can you see me? Are we still sharing? Stop share. Okay, there we go. So one of the stories that Bruce Furness told, I asked him the same question I asked Bill, and he said, well, as an athlete, I really don't remember very much about the games. It was all kind of a blur. I really didn't take it in. And he said, but I went back to the same stadium where I won the gold medals in Montreal. And I really, at that point, was able to take it all in and remember what I'd forgotten to remember. And I thought that was fascinating that he had that moment. And he suggested to all the athletes who are going and all the participants, stop and smell the roses, take in the moment, and don't wait 20 years to go back to remember. So I thought that was fascinating. I've got one closing. Actually, Doug, I wanted to ask you what your memories were of the Olympics, something positive that you walked away with, either a story or an impression or what have you.
The camaraderie and just walking down the streets and hearing all the different languages and feeling the positive power of that, the concern that we talked about security. Everybody was afraid to go to Salt Lake because of security, and yet it felt very safe. The similar issues were Athens, where everybody thought it was going to be total chaos and nobody would be able to get around. And probably because of that, their population within the city was lower, and it actually was quite easy to get around Athens, despite much poor planning by Athens versus Salt Lake. But I think it really was the feeling and the spirit of the people, the athletes intermingled with the people. My father-in-law's birthday was February 22nd of 2022. He was born on 2/22/22, so he celebrated a big birthday during the Olympics. And the Canadian hockey team was in the restaurant, and they helped sing "Happy Birthday" to him. And just
fun.
The feeling of this entire, like, the world community singing "Happy Birthday" to my father-in-law felt groundbreaking. It was amazing.
That's awesome. So is there anybody else in the audience who's been to an Olympics, whether the LA one or others? Because I'd like to get your thoughts too on that question. Anybody? Any takers? Okay. Well, there being none, I will finish with my story before we go to the questions and answers. So I had a golden ticket pass, as did Bill, actually Bill's was a golden ticket. Mine was merely a silver ticket. Mine included all of the athletic events. And there were athletic events everywhere except closing ceremonies. But the lawyer that I am, I figured out that if I walked through the Coliseum using the marathon trail, therefore I was entitled to be there. So I walked up and saw all the people I worked with, including Bill, going, "How'd you get in here? You didn't have a pass to this." I go, "Well, I just came in the marathon route." But the most interesting part of that was after closing ceremonies, I walked out through the Coliseum tunnel with all of the athletes at the end, and to see the joy on their faces, the language is going on, chatting with people, what a great time they'd had. It was just an amazing experience to walk through that in a fairly isolated tunnel. To get all that was absolutely incredible. And then I tell my story that Bill uses too from time to time. I went to a party after that where I was actually Sam the Eagle. And as I was driving to that party to put that costume on as Sam the Eagle, I saw this book close in front of me. And it was the end of a volume of that particular part of my life, and I was ready to go on to law school. But I literally, while I was on the freeway, saw this volume close of my life, and it was just amazing how that became a milestone. And I went to law school and became a lawyer at that point, but that was sort of the end of that particular era for me.
Very cool.
Questions, comments from the audience? Lainey, I see that you were in LA. Yes, the traffic was amazing. It was a glorious time. The weather was absolutely incredible. There was no traffic. I mean, everybody left town, and everybody's leaving for Paris from Paris too. I talked to all my friends in Paris. They go, "Yeah, we're leaving." So it's the time we go on vacation. We're leaving. So I've seen Hella. Is Paris crowded? I've seen some statements. That it's super crowded and overwhelmed, and other things where it's even more quiet than usual for a summertime.
Honestly, I don't go in the center of Paris too much because I know it's going to be or crowded or some ways are blocked, etc. It's really complicated and it's a little bit hot. So summer in Paris is not really cool. So, but for example, they on the highways, for example, all around the city, there is a highway, and they blocked one way for taxis, etc. And so there are a lot of traffic. We can feel that Olympics are coming. There's also, I think, protests. There are protests. There are a lot of a bit of complication, but yeah, that's it. But I also I know a lot of people that won't stay in Paris during the Olympics.
What about the strike situation? I saw a report yesterday that there was a potential for strikes at the airport.
A strike?
The airport workers were planning to do a strike around the time of opening ceremonies.
Yes, I saw it too. And the airport workers and also the workers that work in common transports, public transports. And for now there's no strike, but I think on the 26th it's going to happen.
Okay.
On
opening ceremony day.
French people do that a lot for their rights.
A normal inconvenience. Got it. So what do you think, Casey?
I think we've done good here. I think we've done good.
Fantastic. Lainey, did you want to say anything before we close the room? It's great. I didn't know that you went to the LA games. That's awesome.
I lived in LA then. So yeah, it was.
Most people left though, right?
It was a hometown story. And yeah. Casey, great to see you, and thanks to you for putting this together today.
Oh, you're most welcome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, one of the things that Terry Batch told me, she's with Global LA and she was in Paris already, is that I think she said that for the 2028 Olympics, it'll be one of the first ones, if not the first one, where there's really no new infrastructure being built. And actually that taps into something that's very important that it may have come in through some of the conversations, but Yuka Nakasone and I were talking about the importance of Olympics from an economic development perspective. You know, really this series was geared toward global chamber oriented things like business, which is our main thing, but economic development as well. And Yuka was thinking about two Olympics, the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, which opened up Japan to the world, and also the 1992 Barcelona Olympics that she attended that opened up Barcelona to the world. My initial international trip was 1987 to South Korea, which preceded the 1988 Seoul Olympics, and to watch Seoul, the change that happened in Seoul from 87 to 88 as they built infrastructure, not just the venues, but the transportation systems, and upgraded the roads and built out the airport. And to see that change, it really opened up South Korea to the world. Salt Lake also was that way. Athens wasn't, because Athens is Athens, but Salt Lake built new highways, expanded the 15. Rice Eccles, where the opening ceremonies was an existing University of Utah stadium, but they've upgraded it during that, and they built a number of, like the ice rink they built, and a variety of other ones in Salt Lake that became part of the city. Undoubtedly, Casey, you probably already know that LA, I don't know the details, but I presume that the 84 Olympics must have built some infrastructure that have been incorporated into the city, and that's the reason why they
Not
don't.
As far as we don't, I don't believe we built any, did we, Bill?
We did. McDonald's built a pool at USC.
Right.
They built a velodrome, a bicycle stadium at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and there was an small archery facility that I'm not sure if it's still in place, but it was just those things. It was a pool and a bike track. That was it. We had all the rest of it. There was one item I wanted to mention that if you haven't seen it, yesterday, the Washington Post had a long format article entitled "The Miracle of 1984: How Los Angeles Saved the Dying Olympic Movement." And if you haven't seen the article, I highly recommend it. It's the story of how Los Angeles got the games by default. There were two cities bidding, and the other one was Tehran, and they'd just taken the hostages, and so they bowed out, and we got it by default. And how Uberoth and Harry Usher and the team literally reinvented how you finance them, how you make money with them if you're real careful. But if you haven't seen that article, definitely take a look at it. It's worth the read.
It's almost inconceivable if that would be the case. That's amazing. Yeah. Does that mean how did that impact then the way you viewed the games, given that it sounds like the Olympics had fallen on disfavor?
Well, it was, again, the story is it's pretty well documented how the games, I mean, coming off of Montreal, that had I think it was the 76 games, had a $1.5 billion deficit. They were talking about I think there are kids in Montreal that haven't been born who are still going to be paying off that debt for those games, and where they built the village and stadiums and all kinds of things. And in Los Angeles, we were handed a situation where we had to literally reinvent, how we were going to pay for it.
Amazing. Interesting context. Casey, that's an interesting way to end it, because on the positive side, I mean, there have been so many successful ones as well.
Absolutely.
So what would you say in conclusion?
I just want to thank all the guests who appeared. I want to thank all of you who are here today. I think we're all part of this Olympic movement, and we're all not only interested in it, but appreciative and respect the Olympic movement and what Mr. Coubertin built back in the late 1800s to make this a long-standing organization that has a legacy and will continue to build that legacy for decades and centuries to come.
Hella, did you have any final comments that you wanted to make?
Thanks for everyone for your presence. It really has been a pleasure working with Casey and Doug and all the Global Chamber team. They really helped me through my internship. And don't forget to subscribe to the Spotify Global Chamber, and also on YouTube. And that's it. Thank you so much.
I think the next step will be that these will be coming out what in like on LinkedIn or in a blog post, or how can people check it out?
For the podcast,
Yes. Yeah.
it will be available until 26th. So the start of the Olympics on Spotify and YouTube. We can put the link in LinkedIn. We can do a post to promote the podcast.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. If you could send that to me as well, I'd love to see that as well. I'm sorry I missed it.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Talk to you soon.